to focus on that we've talked about with some of your customers here today specifically is fuel quality in Buffalo is pretty good, so it's really well winter ready, but older equipment isn't really meant to run on the ultra low sulfur diesel that's out there today. Anything that's older than 1996 really should have some additive running in it because it was made for the high sulfur fuels, which have higher lubricity factors and a variety of different properties that the fuel today does not provide. And so we have some solutions for that. You might notice the bottom of the purple label on our table there. It's called Total Power, and it increases cetane, increases lubricity, and then does everything else that you know our additives to do, removing water, cleaning carbon off the tips of the injectors. So you're saving a lot of money by just adding a cost of 2 or 3 cents a gallon in fuel. A lot of you guys have seen this presentation already, so I'm really going to kind of just roll through it real fast and then let Justin add anything he wants at the end. What Justin's going to pass out to you right now is our most recent piece of literature. It contains pretty much a diagnosis of all problems that occur with fuel commonly. There's always going to be random ones that occur, we all know that, but those are the common ones. Just so happens we have the solutions for them. So we're happy to help in that regard. So without further ado, we'll get going on it. So whenever we do this presentation, we always cover the how did we get here? Why are we using ultra low sulfur now? What was here before? Problems associated with these fuels, and then what we can do in the colder weather. Even with the treated fuel in Buffalo, we still know that it even can get cold for that. So it's important. In 1994, it was mandated by the EPA that sulfur content in diesel fuel could not exceed 500 parts per million. It might not seem like a lot, but it's actually pretty significant. Then in 2006, we went down to 15 parts per million. So something had to fill that gap. A lot of what filled that gap was water, and then the additives that they have to put into the fuel to get something back out of it. So with the lower sulfur, you lost the lubrication factor. Harder to truly get a true 40 cetane rating on fuel because of this. So this is just a real easy comparison. This is available on our Facebook page. Even if you don't ever have Facebook, you can go to the web page, you can print this off. This is a really great kind of eye-opener, especially for the guys that are running older equipment. Because if you're running something that's pre-95, 96, that really wasn't made for that 1994 500 parts per million mandate, you're talking major things. Number one, the lack of stability. The only way we can improve that stability is by using an additive that'll kind of keep that fuel really fresh, especially if you have guys putting away their equipment for the winter. Keep that equipment fresh so it starts right up in the spring or whatever. The next big thing is the acceptable, is the acceptable water content. Typically, we're around 60 parts per million water versus pre-95, we were at 20 parts per million water. So we've tripled the amount of water going into this equipment that might be from 1970 or 1980 water. And then lastly is the cold filter plug points, which is all we really care about. I mean, gel point is all well and good, but if your filters are, if things are clogged up, it doesn't make a difference. So whereas pre-95, we were talking about 7 degrees or so before you'd start to just kind of plug her. Is that right? Yeah. 7 degrees to plug. Now you're talking 15 degrees, 20 degrees where it starts to thicken up. So we really want to be conscious of that when your customers are taking on fuel. You also want to check their fuel bills. I know I did that with some of you guys when I went on the road. We looked at their fuel bills. Some of them are getting a good amount of additive. Some of them aren't, and we can really fill that space for them at, again, a very low cost to them, which is the most important thing. So these are year-round products, not really great for the middle of winter, but these are what fills those gaps that we see in the quality of fuel nowadays. So some guys want to have a cetane bump. 8+ cetane can take a 39 or 40 fuel and get it to at least 45 cetane rating. What that translates to is simply power and mileage. That's what the driver is going to notice the difference for. Our lubricity plus fuel power or our regular fuel power, depending on the age of the equipment and what it's meant to run on, you might want to go from our fuel power, the 8-ounce bottle, to our 32-ounce bottle of lubricity plus. That all goes back to that low sulfur fuel. if the fuel's low sulfur and the engine was made for standard sulfur diesel fuel, you want to have that extra lubrication in there. The other nice thing about the Lubricity Plus Fuel Power is it has a cetane bump in it too. It'll take 39 or 40 fuel and probably push it to about 42, maybe 43, depending on the quality of the fuel. So they'll fuel more power, and they'll have that extra lubrication to get that insurance, to have the equipment last longer. And then lastly on this one is Super Fuel Stabilizer. If a tech or anybody ever tells you about finding, Justin explains better. Actually, I'm going to let Justin explain asphaltenes.
No. I'm going to look at the sheet now. Asphaltenes are like little tar balls. So what gets misdiagnosed as algae in fuel, you know, if they try to use the kill them or any type of biocide to get rid of the algae, if it's not working, it's most likely the asphaltenes, which are little tar balls that are in fuel. They don't go through the system as efficiently on the newer trucks. And in your little pamphlets here, towards the back, we actually have a whole sheet on asphaltenes in there. So that Super Fuel Storage Stabilizer, the core treats 500 gallons. It has the fuel power, I think, in there already. So it has the fuel power treatment to get rid of the water. So if they have these black stuff in their fuel or tar balls, you just use that. It's good to use it if you got fuel sitting for over 6 months out there in the field. Especially smaller equipment, you always see low cetane or water in the systems go through the system a lot quicker. So if you have lower cetane on smaller equipment, that's when you get the white smoke on startup. Usually with products like this fuel stabilizer, the A+ cetane, you'll notice a very quick turnaround on that, getting rid of that white smoke on startup.
Thanks.
No problem.
Next, we're going to talk about the problems with this in winter, which is really relevant right now. We got off easy last winter. Buffalo, we definitely had 2 winters that we were owed last winter for, I think. But we're going to see cold come. Right now, the National Weather Service is predicting that we have a high probability of being below normal in this area of the country come December, January, February. So unless their models have changed in the last week, we are going to see gel-ups. We will, typically more so with trucks coming from south of here, say southern Ohio or down. They're going to have problems, so you want, especially the trucking companies, to make sure that they're putting, sending their guys with some product so that when they fuel up down south and they come back, they're not going to end up dead in the water when they get home. So with ultra low, we see higher cloud points, higher filter plug points, and fuel line icing along with the gelling probability, which here in this photo is a beautifully gelled over fuel filter. So we don't want to get to that point. That's basically fully paraffined out. And that will not allow anything to go through it. Think of candle wax, basically. That's what happens with that. So we have some solutions for that, fortunately. And those would be our Total Power or Polar Power BioWinter. If you have somebody that's gelled up, this meltdown product, center right there, will treat approximately 50 gallons, and it'll just kind of cut right through like a sword.
How does that compare with Power Service 911? Because a lot of people buy that around here.
It is virtually, chemistry can only go so far.
Yeah.
So chemically, it's probably pretty similar. I'd like to think that we have a slightly higher treat ratio.
Yeah, from what I understand with the testing we've done is we've changed the formula when it came out with ultra low sulfur diesel. And from as of now, the meltdown from experience is better than the Power Service 911 for de-gelling when you're on the side of the road. Always, you have to change filters. You know, once you're gelled up and you guys sell filters, I mean, that's always a good add-on sale.
No, we don't.
Or find someone that does. But you know, our biggest advantage with the products is, I mean, with the meltdown, you know, it'll work. You know, there's guys on the back of the roads, you'll see that I'll have a gel up. And we've seen that not last winter, but the previous 2 winters before that. Between the Polar and Total Power and the meltdown, the quality is there. You know, we stand behind our product. Also, when it comes to cost, which Mark briefly touched on, is when you get to the larger storage containers, you know, 5-gallon pails, 55-gallon drums, you're talking with our premium winter, which is a Total Power, that does have the same 4-point depressant as the Polar Power. It would just be our premium product because it has an injector cleaner, a cetane improver too. So in the winter, trucks don't run as efficient anyway because of the winter fuel. So when you put a little bit of a cetane improver in, you smooth it out. The Total Power price per gallon to the customer, you're probably talking, if you're doing larger treatments, 3, even 4 cents probably at the highest price per gallon. So that's where that makes the difference. You know, you start breaking it down to the customer like that, then it's not as bad as when he buys a case here or a case there, and they're treating the individual equipment instead of the tank.
Tank itself.
Obviously, treating the tank itself is the most cost-effective way, you know, to treat on these products. And to sell against the competition, our treatment ratios are very aggressive. Our quart bottles for the Polar Total are 1 quart to 250 gallons, or a gallon to 1,000. So for the larger size on the treating, but on the competition, usually the quart bottles or smaller or a little larger size generally heat about 100 gallons. So.
And I'm glad you mentioned the competition, Justin. We didn't rehearse this, by the way, so it's great. You mentioned the competition, and at a standard treat ratio, I'm talking 1 to 1,000, we pretty much are going to beat the pants off anybody. You'll see that our total power, gosh, that's so hard to you'll see that the total power, the green line there, will have a cold filter plug point of minus 31 degrees. At a double treat ratio, we bring it down to minus 41 degrees. So we're considerably gonna make you run colder, longer than any other competition. In here, you'll see Diesel Max, Sheets, Ease Oil, and Power Service. And again, this is another piece of information that you can pull right off our Facebook page. If you just go to the photos section, we have a technical photos area, and it'll really show you. So if somebody says, well, you know, and I know we had a guy here earlier, and that's fine. It's tough to get people to switch. It's like somebody who's totally committed to Ford all their life trying to get them to buy a Chevy truck. I mean, we understand that that's sometimes a difficult sell, but our data is the data. And if you look at that, nobody's touching us on a 1 to 1,000 treat ratio within about 20 degrees is what I see here, 19 degrees or so. So when we can be that much more reliable to our customer, to our business owners, it'll keep everybody on the road longer, and